Hello, everyone. This is an exciting time and a time for me to start taking my Prevagen or whatever oils or ointments one takes as they get older and their brain begins to fail them. Because I had originally said to myself, oh, yes, we're going to have somebody come on who's going to talk about Colorado football, talk about the depth chart, the Deion Sanders effect. And I said to myself, well, we're going to talk Big 12 football. And then at some point, Dave, our guest, reached out to me and said, you mean Pac-12, of course. And I said to myself, oh, yeah. All right. Yes. Right. Yes. For those of you who are in like a coma like I was, or maybe were on like Space Lab or something like that, where you were cut off from society for a certain amount of time, I'll just let everyone know that indeed Colorado is a member of the Pac-12 conference, at least as long as it exists. So we will be talking about Pac-12 football. So I did do all the right research, just forgot that they are in the Pac-12. But the good news is the Pac-12 is an interesting conference because despite the perception that, like the Big Ten, there's a Big Two and everybody else, or the Big 12, where there's a Big Two and everybody else, well, in the Big 12, one of the everybody else has been winning. Kansas State, of course, won the conference last year. And in the Pac-12, one of the everybody else's. Well, I mean, Utah's not an everybody else anymore. I guess at this point they are a Big Two. So everyone talks about Oregon and USC, and Utah just kind of trundles along winning the conference. So it's not a brand identity contest, apparently, Brock. I guess you still have to win it on the field.
Yes, absolutely. And football, especially in the college football landscape, is dictated off what you do on the field. But what you're able to do on the field is dictate what you do in the recruiting cycle. Now, it's high school recruiting, JUCO recruiting, and this new Wonderland, Western Front, gunslinging era that is the transfer portal. And it has been so, what's the right word? Fantastic to see the transfer portal.
Yes.
I know every time I talk to people about transfer portal, everyone's like, "Oh, the transfer portal sucks. These kids are giving commitments to these schools and are not fulfilling their commitment." No, the reason why you're mad is because these top players aren't staying at your program because your program is letting these kids down. And I, for my entire life, have witnessed so many young men go to programs on false promises and waste critical 4 years of development, and their football careers peter out to nothing when they could have been so much more because they put their trust in the hands of dishonest men in college football. Transfer portal has allowed these kids a second opportunity. So when these coaches abandon them in the middle of the night, and their midnight ride like Paul Revere as they trot off to their next big program, big school, big paycheck, these kids have the ability to go into a situation that is much more beneficial to them. And there's a variety of reasons why kids transfer. And as we're going to talk about the Colorado Buffaloes, they transfer because they want to play for a coach like Deion Sanders. That may have ruffled some feathers. I wrote about that recently concerning Deion Sanders and some comments made by Oklahoma head coach Brett Venables. We'll cover that in a second. But the entire Pac-12 conference is I think, the golden era of the transfer portal. I think 9 of the 12 teams will be starting quarterback that transferred there within the past 24 months. Excuse me. Tremendous amount of talent across the field, offensively, defensively, and on special teams. And I cannot wait to dive right into it.
And what more perfect segue than, ta-da, when you say the words transfer portal, a Colorado fan gets his wings. So, what better introduction than our man, David Neal, who is one of my favorite people, especially one of my favorite Colorado people. There's a lot going on. When people say transfer portal, the mental picture they now have is of Ralphie running onto the field. So take us into it, Dave.
Oh, man. Well, first off, Bill, Brock, thank you so much for having me. This means a lot to be on here chatting Buffs and Pac-12 with you guys. But, man, the last, let's see, I guess we're going about 9 months, 10 months since we relieved Carl Durrell of his duties. And what a whirlwind. We have essentially a brand new roster. We have maybe 3 to 4 guys max that are going to be starting for this team that were here on the roster last year. And it's kind of like one of those things that you would do as a kid growing up playing NCAA or Madden, where you would kind of get rid of all of your top guys or trade your guys for draft picks in Madden, and you're kind of starting from scratch with a brand new team. We're getting to see our childhood dreams lived out in reality. And that has been my experience right now as a Buffs fan here in Colorado.
Yeah, it is what a time to be alive, right? When we talked before on your show, we talked about the fact that of the two deep from this 1 year, removed from this year to that, 39 of the 44 slots on the two deep are players that were not on the roster last year. I can't be 100% certain that's a record, but I feel confident that is a record in the history of NCAA football. So Brock has questions, and Brock cannot wait because Brock, as you may know, has recently delved into the situation at Colorado. So I'm going to let Brock Vieira, the babyface assassin himself, have at, and then you will get to join in.
Yes, absolutely, David. One, thank you for coming on the show, and two, I have a little bit of knowledge about the Colorado Buffaloes because for this random 4-year period in time, my hometown team, Hawaii Warriors, and Colorado Buffaloes would have these random back and forth battles, and I've seen the sometimes high and extreme lows of Sefo Liufau when he was the quarterback for the Buffaloes, and I can emphasize with the pain you have gone through as a Buffalo fan during the, of course, Carl Durrell era, and then who was that McIntyre era as well. I one time watched Bryant Moniz run for 3 touchdowns against the Buffaloes, and then I also watched Liufau cook my Warriors up in Colorado several times. But the one thing I never saw from Colorado was consistency. Now, we haven't seen the consistency winning yet, but what we have seen is the consistency in acquiring talent in a very short period of time. Let's talk about this transfer portal. What do you love about what Coach Sanders has been able to bring to Colorado?
Wow, yeah, that's a great introduction to what's going on here, Brock. I think, you can get caught up in the numbers or the amount of quantity of athlete that Coach Prime and his staff have brought in. Of course, we have big names, Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders, Alton McCaskill, a handful of other guys on the defense. But if I'm going to kind of boil it down to one point, the level of athlete that is here now on campus is significantly better than what we've had pretty much overall for the last 15 years or so, 13, really since whenever we joined the Pac-12, I guess, to be honest. Yeah, we can get into the ratings and all of that, but we're bringing in guys that are better athletes than what we've had. And then I think we have a good mix of guys that have multiple years of eligibility. So this isn't necessarily something where, like in 2016, when we won the Pac-12 South, we had a bunch of 4 or 5 year guys on that team, and then after that, it was kind of back to usual for the Buffs. Coach Prime, I feel like they've been very methodical in bringing in guys that, yes, they do have some guys that will be here 1 year. Some might have the option to leave for the NFL maybe after this first year. But overall, they're laying a foundation in which they're bringing in a lot of guys that are going to have multiple years to play for this team. And hopefully that's going to lead to more consistency and hopefully a bowl berth. I don't know if you know this, Brock, but we haven't won a bowl game since before YouTube was launched. In 2004. So it's been a long time, man.
Yeah, no, listen, I can somewhat empathize with your pain. I'm an alumnus of UNLV, so besides that 1 year with John Robinson, I think the last time we won a bowl game, the dinosaurs used to roam the earth. So I completely understand it. But obviously, a bowl game is one step. Like you mentioned, you're laying the foundation for the future. And with USC and UCLA leaving for the Big Ten, how does Coach Sanders, how does his impact put Colorado in terms of winning the conference? What does that perspective look like?
Totally. Yeah. When you're looking at 2024 and beyond, I think we definitely have a shot. Right now, if things kind of stay how they are, we'll see how that goes with all this Pac-12 stuff. But if it's truly a 10-team conference, we still have Oregon and Washington. Of course, a lot of news is made about USC because they're able to recruit at an insane level, both in the transfer portal and at the high school level. But Oregon is still building a very solid foundation to where I think them and Washington are going to be battling for kind of that top dog in the conference moving forward after this year. But I would say right after that, CU does have a chance. And along with, again, I don't want to put any slight towards Utah because they've always continued to be kind of this slept-on underdog that seems to be better at developing straight-up talent better than with any kind of high-end recruiting classes. But I think you'll see Colorado get within that mix. I think that after this year and moving forward, I see scenarios, yes, in 2024, maybe we can finish as that second best team in the conference and get ourselves into the college football expanded playoff. But I'm not going to be making any bets on that right now. But I do think if we continue to put together some solid transfer portal recruiting classes, bring in some solid high school talent, we're able to retain coaching staff, which has been an issue for Colorado in the past. I could see us getting to the level of some of those other programs in the Pac-12, eventually competing for a title here, hopefully soon.
Absolutely. And something that has been talked about because no one in the national media really looks at the state of Colorado football is that both Colorado and Colorado State have made massive improvements to their football program. Obviously, talk about Colorado. Colorado State employs the highest paid coach in the Mountain West in Jay Norvell. They employ one of the highest paid coordinators in Matt Mummy, who they both came over from Nevada, and they're planning on putting together an air raid offense. You guys will be playing them in the Rocky Mountain Showdown for the first time since 2019. How confident are you that Coach Sanders and his team get the job done?
And yeah, I'm very confident about that Colorado State game. I think both of the programs are in interesting situations right now. Obviously, with Colorado State hiring Norvell last year, they're a little bit a step ahead in terms of instilling, their offense, their defense, their culture, their way of doing things, everything like that. I'm going off of my memory right now, but I feel like they did have maybe the top or second best recruiting class in the Mountain West this past year. But I do think, just like CU, that they're coming off a year of, at one point last year, maybe CU and CSU might have been the worst FBS football tandem in college football. So I'm going to go with CU based on the fact that we'll be at home, which will be a lot of fun. And I do think that this might seem simplistic, but I think we do have a better level of athlete than their program right now. But most importantly, I think we have the better quarterback. And I think Shedeur Sanders, if this was kind of like most of the years in the Pac-12, you might have seen him maybe get something like a third team or maybe even second team preseason all-conference honors. Right now, the conference is absolutely stacked at quarterback, so I understand why he's not on that list. But he's probably the most talented quarterback, honestly, that we've had in our school history, if not next to Cordell Stewart, if you're talking about just college football quarterback talent.
Yes. I concur with that. One of the criticisms with Coach Sanders is that during his time at Jackson State, he won a tremendous amount of football games, but in his two Celebration Bowls, he lost both. He was favored by double digits both times. He lost both. The first time he got blown out. The second time he lost by 7 to North Carolina Central Eagles. There are some questions about his ability as an X and O's in terms of coach. Are you concerned for his ability to win the big time games?
I think that's a very fair criticism right now. Yeah, you just laid that out. I'm not necessarily too worried about that right now. And there's kind of like two reasons why. More personally,
Well, did we lose David?
Yeah, so he got hand soloed real quickly. Hopefully, you'll be back momentarily. So,
there he is.
he's back.
There he's back.
sorry,
So
that must have been
that was very dramatic. So if you could go back to that extremely fascinating moment, you said you're not concerned because of, and then we got kind of a.
Yeah. One right now, I want to get to bowl games. I want to compete. So I've already talked a little bit about that, but I will say I think the quality of coach that Coach Prime has been able to hire at CU has leveled up. Of course, Brett Bartolone is still here. He was the offensive coordinator at Jackson State, now with wide receivers. But we do have Sean Lewis coming over here, head coach from Kent State, and I feel like he's a very well-respected play caller, as well as Charles Kelly, running the defense, coming over here most recently, coaching defensive backs at Alabama, and has defensive coordinators experience in the past. I think right now, when you're kind of looking at Coach Sanders, I don't think he's ever going to be known or looked at as that X's and O's type of head coach as maybe you would look at, for say, Lincoln Riley or Chip Kelly in a sense, but he's more of that kind of new age CEO culture setting. He's wanting to set his guys up for success. I think that there are some things in terms of decision making in crunch time situations that you could look at and say that you will want to see him improve from. But I think if we know anything from Coach Prime, Deion Sanders back in his professional days, is that even if he's going to have mistakes or failures in some sense, he is going to learn from them. So I'm not expecting everything to come out and run like a well-oiled machine from the get-go. But what I am expecting is that the same mistakes aren't going to happen over and over again throughout his tenure here at CU. I would hope that he would continue to learn and grow as the seasons go on.
Absolutely. Sorry, Bill, go for it.
Perfect segue into my question about you said culture. And so what is the Deion Sanders effect? I mean, you just said upgrading talent, and that's obviously part of it, but what else is part of the Deion Sanders effect at Colorado?
Yeah, I think the other thing, we've been able to see it too, in some sense, with what he's done with Jackson State, but instilling real accountability and expectations. I think one of the reasons why our program has struggled for so long previous was because there wasn't a true accountability, true expectation to not only win, but to do it in dominating fashion. And that's something that it's very welcomed here with CU fans. I know that at the beginning when he came out, the whole I'm bringing my luggage and it's Louis, I'm trying to make some of y'all quit or all y'all quit, it's going to be hard type of thing. That wasn't received well by certain people or certain media members. But overall, for us Buffs, that was something that I knew was like, okay, like he gets it. He understands like what we're missing, what we're needing. And that type of energy that he's putting out there of, coming here, being accountable, working for everything that you have, and being accountable to the point where sometimes some of this stuff's going to be put out on the internet or in an Amazon documentary. It's bringing reciprocation from the athlete that he's bringing in. Like the guys that are bringing in, you're listening to interviews that are done with the players, even guys that you might not expect to start. So many of them are coming in here with the expectation that they're going to contribute to wins, and they have some pretty lofty personal goals for themselves. It's breathing in a very competitive atmosphere, almost kind of professional in a sense. It's just a new level to what we've had here in the past, and that's something that's refreshing. It's something that we love witnessing online through all of his different, media ventures that he's kind of involved with. It's been cool to see.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And now I'm going to throw it back to Brock. Go ahead. Fire when ready, sir.
Thank you, sir. Well, now that we got all the nice, PG level questions out of the way, let's dive into, the real meat of the situation. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does Brett Venables have his head up his own hoo-ha?
I put out a video earlier this week, Brock, with this, and I think my title was like, of course, it was a little misleading, but I thought it was funny. You know, Brett Venables raves about how he went 6-7. And to me, I've talked a lot about this on my channel. To me, I just think it's so it's weird. It's kind of unprecedented in a way when we see other college football coaches coming out to talk about a coach that isn't even in their own conference. That's something that's pretty unique, and we've seen the comments with Pat Narduzzi as well from Pittsburgh. But I will say it's kind of off-putting when I do think Brett Venables is a good coach. I don't think he reached any sort of normal expectation that Sooners fans had last year. Of course, they've still been able to recruit very well. And with losing what they lost last year in the transfer portal, I'm willing to excuse that this year. But it quite shocks me that he would be talking about our coach, about a man who's trying to take an approach of rebuilding a program from a 1-11 roster, which I think we had maybe 7 guys go Power 5 that transferred out of this program last year. So just the quality is just so much different than what he took over at Oklahoma. To me, it's pretty ignorant to be making that kind of that comment on the side about Coach Sanders about how I'm not like him. I'm being patient with my guys, giving them a year. One, the talent level at your program is so much higher than where Coach Sanders was taking over from. But two, maybe you should have been a little bit more cutthroat. Maybe you should have held yourself to a higher standard, and maybe you want to have gone 6-7.
I concur. What I love about this show and doing this with Bill is that he always brings on guests that are very, well-mannered and professional, and the way they speak while still getting their point across. When I'm just gonna say Venables shit the bucket, but that's neither here nor there. So I am currently pulling up an article by some mid-level writer, and I want to get your quotes from this person, and I want to get your thoughts about it. And one of the quotes that this writer said is that if you remember Venables' original quote about Deion Sanders, he doesn't refer to Sanders as Coach Deion or Coach Sanders. The word coach doesn't appear, nor does Venables reference Sanders' last name. Of course, he addressed him as Prime. I believe Venables, like a lot of coaches throughout the country, doesn't see or respect Deion Sanders as a head coach. I believe some view him as someone who got the job based off of name alone instead of his resume. What do you think about that quote?
Oh, man. Yeah, based off of his name and not his resume. Man, I don't know about that because, again, you've talked about his performances in the Celebration Bowl, and that's really the only knack you can have on his performance as a college football coach right now. In terms of recruiting, he's been able to recruit better than pretty much any FCS program that I can think of in terms of bringing in top-end guys. He's been able to recruit with the best. I do think his name and who he is obviously has to do with a lot of who he's able to bring in from both the player side and the coach side. But it's clear the man knows how to coach a football team, or else I think you would see a lot more chaotic messes happening, especially when you have college football teams the size of 100 guys. Keeping everybody in line it's not something that should be overlooked. Of course, you can criticize maybe that he's not calling plays or anything like that, but the most important thing I think is setting a culture. We've seen from with Buffs fans what happens when you don't set a culture. What happens when you don't keep people accountable, and you get what we've gotten, where we wonder if we're better off just moving to the Mountain West Conference. Which is like real discussions we had after Carl Durrell was fired. But I think too, in terms of the respect factor with Coach Prime, I think that that is true to an extent. I think that's why other college football coaches feel that they have the right or maybe have some sort of responsibility or obligation to criticize him publicly. And again, I brought this up on my show. I think that I think we live in America. We are being ignorant if we, do not recognize that probably some of the criticism, whether that's coming from coaches, fans, or media, there isn't a racial issue with this. There's never been a black head coach to win a Power Five national championship, and we're seeing somebody who, Coach Prime, uh, uh, outspoken, accomplished black man, comes in confident, doing things his way in an unprecedented way, that can threaten the status quo. It can threaten people who maybe believe in, quote unquote, traditional values and, some of that BS, and, they feel threatened and upended because Brett Venables, Pat Narduzzi, none of these guys could dream of doing what he's done with CU's program in 8 months, what he's done. And we're not just talking about from the recruiting standpoint. We're talking about the exposure, the spotlight that's going to be on this team. We're talking about already multiple primetime slotted games for the Buffs coming into this year. We're talking about, obviously the spring game, 500,000 viewers. They went with us over Georgia, and in 30-degree weather. He's like a boxing promoter alongside a coach who's also a celebrity. So that's not anything that these coaches can replicate. And I think sometimes you'll see their frustration, jealousy, or maybe insecurity with who they are show themselves in ignorant comments like we've seen made.
I absolutely concur with that, and you are absolutely right. When it comes to African-American head coaches, Deion Sanders is leading the way, partly because Mel Tucker isn't getting the job done at Michigan State, and no one's giving Mike Locksley an honest shot to get to a better program, but that's neither here nor there. I have another quote from this article, which you can find on Team MBS Media. Venables versus Sanders makes OU look foolish, by the mid-level writer Brock Vieira. But this gentleman says that a place like Colorado needs a coach like Sanders, a coach who can both recruit and keep high-level talent. With the Buffaloes losing both Christian Gonzalez and Brendan Rice through conference rivals in 2022, Sanders checks the boxes. Now, what I meant by that is that Sanders will be able, in my opinion, will be able to keep recruits at Colorado. Do you share the same sentiment, or do you think that a lot of teams are going to try and pluck the talent away from Colorado and will do so successfully?
Yeah, I'm overall pretty confident that we'll be able to keep the majority of guys that we bring in. Of course, in today's transfer portal era, I'm being ignorant if I don't think we're going to have players from this team jump in the portal next year, right? That happens with every program right now. But you're talking about some of our top guys that have developed here over the last few years: Christian Gonzalez, Brendan Rice, Kai Blackman as well. Those guys, or at least two of those three, not Blackman, but Rice and Christian Gonzalez, were actually recruited by someone who I felt like could have done well if there was institutional support, and that was Mel Tucker. Those guys were Mel Tucker recruits. And I think that you'll see Coach Sanders right now, we are growing our NIL initiatives. There is more support at the football program level and NIL now, and that's going to continue to grow. But I think that you'll see guys coming in here that are primarily motivated to be here because of the culture, because of who Coach Prime is, and not necessarily making their decisions based off of how much money can they get year one in college. And I think that's why we haven't been in the mix for some of these other top recruits. Maybe we don't have the money to compete with some of them, but some of those other top guys that we have been able to bring in, maybe have a little bit different of a priority. And I think that those values are being reciprocated. I mean, you hear him talk about the NFL, not NIL type of thing. He's not against NIL, but I think he's trying to instill a very professional culture here. Again, the Denver Broncos headquarters are about 45 minutes away from campus. We're going to have NFL scouts here a lot, and it's an opportunity if you got the long game in mind to really make a name for yourself here while the eyeballs are on you.
Yes, absolutely. I know I've been taking a majority of time. I got 3 last questions, Bill, before I hand it over to you. Last question about this whole Venables and Sanders kind of debacle before I get back to just regular football. What I found disturbing was that out of all the people Venables could have went after, I mean, Lincoln Riley is Oklahoma's most hated person in the state, right? And he's a guy that used a transfer portal during his first year at USC. He brought in Jordan Addison. He brought in Caleb Williams, brought in Mario Williams, a whole host of players. He didn't go after him, or he didn't go after one of Oklahoma's most loyal sons in Josh Heupel. When he went to Tennessee, he brought in Joe Milton, Hendon Hooker, Brew McCoy, and a whole host of players there. He didn't go after those guys. He went after a guy in Deion Sanders. Why did he go after Sanders instead of basically those coaches or anybody else who did the exact same thing?
Oh man, because he's low-hanging fruit. You know, it's something that right now it's socially acceptable. I mean, as a local Colorado resident here, I mean, you've seen that with what happened with the criticism with Russell Wilson last year, that he just became this popular punching bag for everybody in the media, for other players. And yeah, like it reeks of insecurity. And it's like, it really ticks me off that these coaches, they can say these things and then kind of hide behind the wall that they don't play this school. Like, they don't have to face the music. Brett Venables would have to face the music, at least from Sooner fans, in a sense, or other people in the Big 12, if you were to attack somebody like Lincoln Riley. But also, Lincoln Riley's at an even bigger brand than Colorado. I told this to Bill. This is a side or tangent, but Coach Prime's brand is like 100 times bigger than CU's. So if he were to attack, Brett Venables were to attack USC or whatever, that would probably create some more larger backlash in terms of, that concentrated USC base. But with all the new Buffs fans, of course, you can see the outrage that happens on Twitter or social media. But it's like there's pockets of new Buffs fans all over the country, and we're still kind of learning how to all come together as a unified force. But man, back to the initial question, it pisses me off that Pat Narduzzi, that Brett Venables can say these things, and then they don't have the balls to put us on the schedule. Like, if you know anything about promoting a fight, making a show, a main attraction, like, that's fine. Like, talk your trash. But this leads to nothing. This leads to no resolution. This leads to no eventual conflict or climax. It's all just words that, we can't really – these guys can hide behind the fact that they never actually have to put their money where their mouth is and go out there and perform.
Absolutely.
Until the 2025 Monike Car Care Bowl, where we get to see Colorado face Oklahoma.
with Oklahoma's interim head coach, as they had fired Brett Venables before the bowl game. Now, two last questions. Back to football. Obviously, we've seen the transfer portal from Power 5 schools, Group of 5 schools, couple of FCS programs. There is a tremendous amount of talent in these phenomenal FCS programs located in the West, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Do you think that Coach Sanders is going to go over there and pluck a lot of talent from there, or is he going to stick to the FBS level?
I think you'll see him continue to stick at that FBS level. I think especially going into or looking at the 24 recruiting class, I think you're still going to see this high school portion be a little light, maybe compared to other growing programs. But I think the bread and butter is really going to be made for this program through the transfer portal, and I think it's going to be in with him staying kind of within the areas that he has his deep roots. Florida, Georgia. I think we'll start to see some more players coming here out of Texas. I think that's where you're going to continue to see recruits coming from, and maybe a little bit of Southern California. We've been trying to get in there, with Modern Day, for instance, but that hasn't surfaced yet the way that Florida has, for instance.
Absolutely. Last question for me. I do appreciate you kind of sticking with me for this marathon, and thank you, Bill, for allowing me to kind of ask all these questions. Nebraska, Colorado, longtime rivalry, reignited, home opener. Who wins? Big
Oh,
Red
man.
or the Buffaloes?
Man, Buffs all day. I don't care if we go 1-11 again this year. The only thing that matters is that we beat Nebraska. Absolutely. From a personal level, especially being here in 2019, where Nebraska fans took over Folsom Field, it is very important that we show out, that we pack the stadium full of black and gold, and really, it's going to be a coronation for this Coach Prime era here at CU. Who cares what happens the week prior at TCU? It doesn't matter. What matters is that we handle business against Nebraska. I will give Brett Venables and Pat Narduzzi credit, because at least they've come out and said their issues, as ignorant as they are, in the public with their face and name behind it. But Matt Rule, he seems to be making all of these kind of side-eyed comments about Coach Prime, comparing himself to the program. I personally was hoping that CU would have hired Matt Rule after Carl Durrell was fired. I had no belief this program could get somebody with hype like Coach Prime here. And so it's going to be all that much sweeter when we're able to get the win, start off that Coach Prime era right with, defeating our most important and storied rival here at Nebraska. With Nebraska, I don't care what happens throughout the rest of the year, but we better win that game.
Absolutely. You and I have different views on Matt Rule, but that'll be a conversation for another time. Bill, I'm going to leave it all to you. What you got for our main man, David, over here?
I've got a few things. First of all, it is an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to have you here. Dave, you are energetic, informed, and most of all, you laugh at the gratuitous shots that the babyface assassin loves to throw out there. That is his favorite thing in the world.
I love it.
To just take completely unnecessary shots at people. So I want to talk about recruiting. You mentioned recruiting, and of course you mentioned that recruiting means something different to some extent for your program than traditionally. Who are the recruits, whether they've come from another school at the collegiate level or high school, that you're most excited to see?
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I'll start off with some big dogs, and then we can talk about some sleepers, okay?
Yep.
Of course, football is most enjoyable to watch when you have a competent quarterback, something that we haven't had in quite a while here. I am thrilled to have Shedeur Sanders here. If you're looking at some of the FCS level quarterbacks that have gone first round in my lifetime, we're talking about Joe Flacco. We're talking about Carson Wentz. We're talking about Trey Lance. In 2 years, as a freshman and sophomore, Shedeur Sanders has outperformed all of them in pretty much every single performance metric that you can track. And I am extremely excited to see how he's going to perform moving up to the next level in the Power Five. That is one thing that I am absolutely thrilled about. I've told people on my channel this all the time. If you just replace the 5 different starting quarterbacks we had on our team last year with Shedeur Sanders, and that's the only change we make, we win at least, 2 to 3, hopefully, games total compared to 1. I think that he's just that good of a quarterback. So I'm very excited to see how he is. Of course, he's not, 6'5" and above like those guys are, which is probably a factor in why they got drafted in the first round, being at the FCS level. But I'm very excited to see how he hopefully continues to improve and how he plays against better competition as well. How could I not be excited to see Travis Hunter play here? The most talented defensive player that we've had maybe since since I was a little baby in the early 90s. I think that he's going to be a dynamic weapon. Maybe in the mold of Charles Woodson to some extent. I think that I would expect him to still primarily take the majority of his playing time at the cornerback position. But like we saw in the Celebration Bowl, that chemistry with Shedeur is something special. And I would expect that in crunch time or in big games, we'll see him play wide receiver more often. Now, let's talk about some other maybe sleeper type of transfers that I'm very excited to see. The other Sanders that's not talked about a lot, Shiloh Sanders. People forget that he was a quality safety in the SEC at South Carolina. And he comes here. He kind of reminds me of TJ Ward in a sense. Really hard hitter, great ball skills. Just like Bill, we talked about a few weeks ago, he does have an NFL body and potential. And so I can't wait to see how he performs here in a very deep safety group compared to what we've had in the past. And then let's talk about running back just a little bit. This is a group that I'm very excited about because they got guys that can do some different things. But Alton McCaskill, he's a guy that I think will profile or could profile as a 3-down back. I don't think that's how Sean Lewis is going to use him. But coming off of Nace last year, a freshman of the year in the AAC for Houston the year prior, and he's a guy that can catch, that's got power, that's got shiftiness, that has speed, and he's going to be a massive weapon. As much as I think that Shedeur Sanders is going to be showcased and have a fantastic year, we cannot forget that this offense, it's going to be predicated from the run first. And so Alton McCaskill, guys like Cavassier Smoke coming over here, 1,000-yard rusher from Kentucky. I couldn't be more excited for that. And then on top of that, Savion Wilkerson, running back at Jackson State last year. I think he had offhand, trying to think about maybe 1,500 or so all-purpose yards. He's a guy that probably could have gone somewhere and started at another Division I or FBS level somewhere. And he's choosing to come here in what is a loaded backfield. So those are guys that I'm very excited to see come here. And let me give you one more name that's a super sleeper coming in here on the defensive line, Bishop Thomas. He is coming over here from Florida State, redshirted last year, but he was not their practice squad. Why am I scout team? He was their scout team defensive player of the year. And if you look at his high school tape, he is physically a monster that dominates guys, that inflicts pain, that plays with a certain attitude that we haven't had at this school in a very long time. And him and like Savell Smalls, hopefully he can come here, former 5-star from Washington, that edge rusher that wasn't able to he doesn't have a sack yet in his college career, coming here to kind of revitalize things for his career. I'm excited to see what the coaching staff, Nick Williams, can do.
Yeah, I would agree with all the ones you just mentioned. I'm going to throw out Javon Antonio. You've got a brand new wide receiver room, obviously. I mean, completely brand new wide receiver room. And
did you see that, Bill? His eyes lit up as soon as you said his name.
I thought they might.
Christmas.
So let's touch a little bit on the wide receiver room, and then we'll talk about some other players in other places.
Yes, yeah. The wide receiver room, man, this is going to be, so much fun. because all these guys got speed. You're talking about Javon Antonio, a guy who, 6'4", kind of built like, I think I mentioned this on my show with you, Bill, kind of built like a baby Megatron or something like that, or Demarius Thomas, just a beast. I hope he can get to that level, but he's somebody that he's going to be able to stretch the field big time and make big time catches in traffic with his frame. Now, I did expect earlier in the year, I thought, okay, will we see Travis Hunter play full time at both offense and defense? But we're bringing in another solid wide receiver in Xavier Weaver, as well as Jimmy Horn, somebody who can really excel in the slot as well as special teams, both coming from South Florida. And you also have a guy like Willie Gaines, another speedster, another guy who can contribute on special teams coming over here from Jackson State. And then, we have some really interesting transfers, or not transfers, high school players, freshmen coming in here, particularly Adam Hopkins and coming out here from Georgia, and then Omarion Miller coming out here from the state of Louisiana. And it's hard to name off all the guys, but I think we got total, if we're including non-scholarship guys, we have 20 wide receivers right now on the roster, and that kind of competition, it's going to, bring the best out in everybody. But we're no short of weapons for Shedeur at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I want to mention one other guy that I liked, and you can tell me if what you're hearing about it is Jalen Ellis in that very, very, very crowded, very, very deep wide receiver group, and then we'll jump to the other side of the ball.
Yeah, Jalen Ellis. He is. He's the one from Baylor, right?
Correct.
Okay, because my memory is all over the place, keeping track of like all 60 of these transfers. But coming over here from Baylor has struggled with injuries kind of throughout, but man, big time speedster. He and Jimmy Horn, they might be the two fastest wide receivers on the team. I think he's got special teams ability as well, which is something that I'm really looking forward to. But a change of scenery, sometimes for these young guys, get in a different strength program, get in a different routine, get in different nutrition and recovery. Hopefully he's able to stay healthy here. But yes, he's another guy that could really surprise, because we just haven't been able to see a lot of him. I think maybe he has like 8, 9, 10 career catches, something like that. Hopefully we can get more out of him with his time here at CU.
And people don't talk much about specialists, but punters are people too. Tell me about Mark Bassett. Some people think that Mark Bassett is a guy that's going to turn himself into a pro prospect in his time at Colorado. What do you know about him, and what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Australian punters, so we have that going for us, which I love. And then you see, I can't name the publication off the top of my head right now, because there was like 4 of them that came out and gave preseason all Pac-12 honors, but Mark Bassett was on there. And he's coming out here from Louisville, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
I believe he is left-footed. Correct me? Okay,
correct.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah. And, sometimes those left-footed punters, they can make things a little uncomfortable for those returners. That spin on the ball is just a little bit different. And he's going to excel here with the altitude. That's something that people forget about a lot, is that we're at over 5,300 feet in elevation over at Boulder, slightly higher than where we're at in Denver. And that's going to suit our special teams really well.
I'm excited as well to see. First of all, Australian punters are usually fun, and they're legal to like rent cars and buy whatever. So you get a chance to maybe go on some fun road trips. Let's talk.
You don't have a 28-year-old punter. Are you really a college football program?
Well, we had a kicker that when I got to grad school here, I cannot remember his name right now. It was either going into the 2018 or 2019 season. But yeah, he had like 3 kids and was like 28 years old, and he retired to focus on his family. Buffs fans, if you're listening to me, let me know about that.
Yeah, his children was his kids was having kids, so he decided to retire and be a grandpa.
Oh, thank you once again for setting Brock up for another not at all necessary shot. But that is what we do here. So defense, you mentioned at least one really interesting player on the defensive side of the ball. And I wanted to make sure we hit on at least 1 or 2 other players that are going to line up on that side of the ball. Obviously, there's a few new names. Leonard Payne Jr. is a new face. Shane Koch's a new face, and Jordan Dominic's a new face. What do you know about those guys, and what are you expecting from them this year?
Yeah, Koch's and Payne, they're coming as grown men here, which is something that I think this program has really needed. We needed kind of veteran guys that have been there, that have performed, that can lead. And coming over here, Payne coming over here from Fresno State, productive player, one of those better kind of lower FBS school players that perform very well. And with Shane Koch's coming over here from Dartmouth, okay, Ivy League. But I still think that, the Ivy League can be underrated. They do put out NFL talent, and he's somebody that did want to look into going the NFL route. He has NFL dreams. Wasn't, the feedback or projections that he was getting on himself wasn't where he wanted to be. And so he decided, he's going to take advantage of his, extra year or 2 now that he has of eligibility. But he's a very bright guy. You'll see him featured in a lot of the well-off media videos. He is a leader. Fun fact, if you remember the video where Coach Prime was talking about how he hates number 0, and then he picked on a player and asked, "What number do you want?" And that player said 0. That player was given a lot of flack because it's like, are you just trolling Coach Prime? And he came on later and said, no, he's like, I was caught off guard, but I thought I would be honest. Before that conversation, I wanted to keep my number 0. So I thought I would just go ahead and still say it. But those are the guys that I think you'll see start on the defensive line here week 1 against TCU. Bill, we've discussed this prior, but defensive line right now is still one of the areas where I feel like we are in need of more talent, competition, upgrade, and size. We don't necessarily right now have any proven depth behind those guys, but I'm hoping that we can develop some of that depth with our coaching staff that we have.
Yeah, that's got to be what you're trying to do throughout the season. I want to hit on a couple of more position groups, and then we'll talk about, believe it or not, other teams. There are other teams in the conference. Yeah. So at least make mention of them as well. But I do want to hit upon a couple more players that are on that defensive side of the ball and see what becomes of them. You made mention of at least some guys. I'll touch on a few more. Derek McClendon II, of course, is another guy that you're hoping will help you to get some pressure on the passer as well. Then you've got true linebackers, guys that are actually going to be linebackers for real. Guys like Jeremiah Brown, Brendan Grant, Levante Bradley, and Dimine Kennedy. And then we'll save the best for last, your secondary. Yeah. So let's talk about those guys.
Yeah, let's talk about edge. I forgot to talk about Jordan Dominic. You mentioned him, and let's pair him with Derek McClendon. Jordan Dominic, one of the top SEC sack leaders last year at Arkansas. And so he and Derek McClendon, I can't remember McClendon's sack stats off the top of my head, but another very productive player out of a very good team at Florida State last year, double-digit win team. Those guys, I think that we'll expect to be those starting edge rushers, but we do have guys like Jeremiah Brown that I think is going to be kind of that next top guy in that rotation. And then kind of after that, there's a mix of a lot of guys that maybe were top end recruits, but don't necessarily have the production yet. top end and very top end compared to what we've had, the last 15 years. But yeah, we'll have to see kind of how all that shakes out. But then also at linebacker, yeah, we got Demoy Kennedy coming over here from Alabama. He's a linebacker that I think has a lot of speed. For him, it seems like health is another one of those things that is something that we're going to have to focus on with him here. And then we do have Levante Bentley, who also got preseason All Pac-12 honors this week. And he's a guy coming out from Clemson. Didn't get a ton of time on the field during the regular season at Clemson. But similar to Alabama, that's how I feel, especially for where this program is at. It is no shot at you if you're not a starter at one of these top defensive programs in the country. I think a change of scenery where they have the opportunity to get more playing time and show out will be great for them. And I would think that those two guys right now are the leaders when it comes to guys that you'll see at the inside linebacker position. They come from programs that coach well, where the competition is deep, and I think they'll be able to really benefit from being at those prior programs till transferring here.
Yeah, and you already made mention, obviously, of the other Sanders son, and you made mention of the player everybody's talking about, according to Travis Hunter. But that's not the end of the story in the secondary. This is, shocker, another place where a lot of players are new, a lot of faces that maybe are from other places. I wanted to touch on some of them, and at least one familiar face, Trevor Woods. There you go. So, somebody cue up the song "Survivor." But
what of 10 players that didn't get ousted in the new regime?
Yes.
But walk us through some of those players, like Cormani McClain, who is a new player. The holdover Trevor Woods, Miles Slusher, also Amarian Cooper, Roderick Ward, Cameron Craig Simon, and anyone else who maybe stands out to you in that secondary group.
Yeah, man, so many names you're naming off, Bill. Your memory is really impressive. Yeah, let's start with the cornerback position. Of course, we got Travis Hunter there. But we're bringing in a lot of guys that I think have the opportunity to perform really well. Of course, Cormani McClain coming in here is one of the top cornerbacks this year. I don't know if he'll necessarily kind of move in as that kind of starting cornerback too off the bat. I think we have some guys coming in here that are pretty experienced in terms of just being in college football for a while at big time programs. Jaquez Robinson, I believe is his name, transfer coming over here from Alabama. I don't think he would have come over here if he didn't kind of have that knowledge that, he's got a prime lane to start at, with Charles Kelly having coached him. You have Kendrick Breedlove coming over here from Ole Miss, who's another rangy, speedy corner that I really like. Gosh, you name the FSU player.
Was that Roderick Ward or was that? Hold on. Let me think. No. We talked about Slusher. We talked about. J Trap? No, not.
Yeah. Travis J. Oh,
Travis J. Yeah.
But we also had, there's another cornerback here from Kentucky that I am trying to. His name has escaped me. I got my list.
Vito Tisdale.
Yeah, it is Vito Tisdale. Yeah.
Vito Tisdale. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
so I need the internet for that one. Bill can just scroll through the depth chart in his head. It's ridiculous.
Vito Tisdale is one of those guys that he's kind of been moved around and jumped around positions a whole bunch, but he can kind of play a little bit of safety. He was moving back to cornerback before he moved this past year, so I think that you'll see him be able to play some different spots that I really like. Now at the safety position, it is extremely stacked. We got Travis J coming out here from FSU. We have Roderick Ward, who was an all-conference in the WAC at Southern Utah. that guy's a ball hawk. We have Shiloh Sanders. We have again, man, our holdover from CU that you just
Trevor
mentioned.
Woods.
That guy,
we just talked about him briefly, Mr. Woods.
Yeah, he got preseason all-conference honors this week as well, and he's a very sure tackler in the run game. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of what happens with all of these safeties, because I feel like some of them do have good coverage skills. Some of them you will see possibly play nickel as well. Maybe Cameron Silman Craig, might be playing a little bit of hybrid as well. Some of these guys I feel like have the ability to where they can, if they kind of want to play more of a linebacker role in the run game, they can. But that has been one of the hardest groups to predict how it's going to shake out, because I feel like in terms of depth and quality, that's one of the position groups at safety specifically that I feel best about on this team, along with wide receiver.
Okay. And we're going to whip through some newcomers on other teams not named Colorado, because some other teams got some players. Drew Pine, how we feel about Drew Pine, has made his way to the Pac-12, and I think is penciled in as a starter. I don't know if you got a chance to watch. I don't know if you've already had a chance to watch him, but he is, along with DJ Youngale, are the two big sort of
scrub,
big-ish names amongst quarterbacks coming into the conference. And I think we already heard from one constituency. What's your take on those two? And then we'll walk through some other big-time newcomers in the conference.
Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, Drew Pine, Arizona State, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think I actually really like this for Arizona State, because I think ideally, it's great when you have really top-end talent come in here as true freshmen that are able to play. I mean, that's great, but ideally, if you're running a college football program, you do not want these 17, 18-year-old kids feeling the pressure of an entire program on them. And I think that Drew Pine, I think he kind of profiles as that typical bridge quarterback at the college level for Dylan Rashada coming in there, or Jalen Rashada, sorry, coming in there. I really do like what Kenny Dillingham is doing at Arizona State, and I think he's a great hire for that school. And I don't think that you'll see the best performance from Drew Pine, but you kind of needed a veteran guy, someone that's there that has some playing experience, that can kind of also serve as a mentor, showing him how to work, how to watch film, kind of all these different kind of intangible type of things. Maybe not necessarily, just always about lighting up the stat sheet, but, coming in there as a leader, and we'll see how that shakes out. Do I think that Rashada will probably end the year as the starter for Arizona State? I would hope so for Sun Devils fans. I think that would be the plan. But on the flip side of that, with the case of DJ Langole, I tried my best. Uyagalele.
Yes.
You kind of see what happens sometimes if guys are thrown in there maybe before they're too ready, or they're not ready, like at Clemson. And somebody that's coming in there with obviously a ton of talent. He has NFL size, which I think is a big deal. And he needs a change of scenery. And sometimes, especially when you're that young, I mean, heck, I'm 30 years old, and even a change of scenery with the work that I do, that really does affect my performance at work, for better or for worse, depending on where I'm moving. And that's absolutely true for these young guys. And I'm a little bit more optimistic, I think, with Oregon State. They obviously had a very underrated year last year. Finished the year ranked team. very, very stout and difficult team. And, we haven't been good, both CU and Oregon State, for a lot of our time in the Pac-12 together. And they've always kind of been a thorn in our side. But now, I mean, they're really building something to where the floor at this conference is definitely higher than where it's been in the past. I think, and my hope is that you see Oregon State continue to improve, but I think I do have pretty tempered expectations for them at the quarterback position. I would take Shiloh, or not Shiloh, I would take Shador over DJ right now, no doubt.
Got it. And I think most NFL evaluators would agree with you there.
I think most people with eyeballs that function would agree with you. And ladies and gentlemen, don't ever let the age of 30, put you down, because you can either be on a show with us or you could be Tommy DeVito. So it really doesn't matter. Sorry, was that another unnecessary pot shot? I apologize to the DeVito family. That was unnecessary. And sorry he didn't get his extra year of eligibility. Sorry, he couldn't be a 9-year college football veteran. I do apologize on behalf of
another. Truly, Tommy DeVito is busily going through whatever his internship, wherever it is, catching strays for absolutely no reason.
What are you talking about internship? He's applying early application for his AARP membership. What do you mean internship? Come on now, Bill.
Back to Dave with my question about. I want to spend a little time on Jordan Birch and what he means to Oregon. Oregon is a team that a lot of people are picking to not only win the conference, but maybe even be that Pac-12 team that fights its way back into the Final Four in terms of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what crack does to you.
What do you think Jordan Birch might mean to Oregon as a program, and what do you think of the Oregon Ducks this year?
Man, yeah. Birch is a big deal, man, because I think that, there were some questions with, Mario Cristobal moving over to Miami. How is Dan Lanning going to take this thing, and where is it going to go? And it seems like the program's continuing to move in that upward direction, especially the way that they've been able to recruit and bringing in Birch. I mean, he, if he's not the best edge rusher coming in here into the conference, he's definitely one of them. And I think you've kind of seen some similar issues traditionally happen with both of these programs, with Oregon and USC, where the offense is on fire, but the defense is really lacking. But now you're seeing these programs really bring in really solid defensive transfers that are rounding out these teams. I think Oregon, that they're taking their recruiting game, to a new level. I believe overall they had another top 10 class this year. They lost
Dante Moore,
yes, but then they were able to pivot very quickly to getting Novosad, his first name.
I know you're talking about.
I forget his first name.
Hold on, I'll tell you in a second. Oh, what was it? I know you're talking about. What was his name again? I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hold on. It's and they also got one of the Young too, right?
Yes. Linebacker.
The younger brother, right?
Yeah.
Yep. But again, I think, like I opened up with Brock on this earlier, I think that they're kind of in prime position to be that top dog, that king of the conference, moving forward, as long as this conference lasts.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow, what a gloomy way to say that. I think this person will be alive as long as the life support machine keeps working.
So I do have a couple more programs to hit upon before Brock continues with his roast. So I'll say the newcomer, the non-freshman newcomer that I'm most excited about is Dorian Singer. I watched him at Arizona and thought, man, if he had even reasonably competent quarterback play, what this guy would do. And he was really good even without reasonably competent quarterback play. When I think about what guys like Kenny Galladay and guys like that, sort of what they are as players, I think he has a chance to be that, maybe even better. Tell me what you've noticed about Jordan Singer. What do you think he's going to do in his new home?
Oh, man. Well, I'm wondering if you'll see him, be one of those wide receivers that gets himself on the Heisman finalist list. I mean, just extremely dynamic wide receiver, fantastic hands, extremely quick on his cuts, and pairing him with somebody like Caleb Williams, I think that this would be his no doubt most dynamic weapon that he's had in his career, in my opinion. And I'm wondering, this might be a little aggressive, but I'm wondering if you might see Caleb Williams throw for over 5,000 yards if they get themselves into that college football playoff.
I don't think it's – I just want to add, I don't think that's crazy at all. I'm very high on this USC offense. They have a phenomenal running back room, the three top wide receivers, as previously mentioned, and it's a Lincoln Riley offense. And let's be real now, if you look at the schedule, they don't really have a really tough schedule. They play San Jose State, Nevada, Stanford, at Arizona State before they play, of course, at the Buffaloes to start the season. He's throwing for at least 400 against all four of those teams. I mean, I just want to add that. Shout out to Nate Atkins and also Greg Rector, who are big Notre Dame fans. So it's going to be really fun to watch Touchdown Jesus, watch Caleb Williams throw for over 600 yards, like 38 touchdowns against the piss-ass Notre Dame Fighting Irish defense. And then he's going to finish off the year against UCLA in his final home game. He's got to throw for big against them. So I just wanted to say that to add to your point. I am with you all the way on that, and you are completely on the spot with that evaluation.
We just talked about the school that Mr. Singer left. I want to talk about the school where Mr. Singer was. They managed to land at Arizona Bill Norton, Daniel Hamuli, and Leviticus Sua. First of all, shout out to Leviticus Sua, another contender to make the all-name team. But take me through what Arizona's defense, which was not exactly a strong point, could look like with the additions of those three players.
Bill, I got to be honest, man. I do not know. Arizona has not been one of those schools that I have looked into much this offseason, to be honest, aside from some of their moves on the offense. So you're going to have to tell me on that one.
Well, on that happy note.
Real quick, I just want to fill in real quick for Arizona. Shout out to the kitchen staff for making the Polynesian food good enough to recruit all those top players. And then secondly, this has nothing to do with what was mentioned, but shout out to the random Khalil Tate comment from like 5 years ago. Saying he didn't go to Arizona to run the triple option offense with when they were openly recruiting Ken Neal Matalolo, even though if we look at his passing prowess, Khalil Tate might have benefited greatly from the triple option offense. But just wanted to add that. Also, shout out to the Arizona public relations team for absolutely fumbling the questions and media interview between quarterback Jaden DeLaura regarding his sexual assault issue and case. So well done, Wildcats. Rawr.
So that was not the segue I was hoping for, but here we are.
Well, Brian Ferentz wasn't the OC Iowa Hawkeyes fans hoped for, but here we are.
Any more shots before I go back to
one last one. OU's offense was so trash. I thought Brian Ferentz went down to Norman. All right, now I'm done.
Okay, so we're not even talking Big Ten football, and yet Mr. Ferentz has also caught a stray. That's what you get when you decide to tie your fates, your destiny to one babyface assassin, Brock Vieira. Okay, now back to what we were actually talking about. I would like to make some mention of you done. He's done. Okay, good. I'd like to make some mention of Arizona's program, other than what was just said, because that was not where I thought it was going to go. But Bill Norton was a depth piece at Georgia. He's going to play a lot at Arizona. Hamuli was a Washington State player who looked good, and the incoming freshman is Leviticus Sua, who is a 4-star and is going to probably also be penciled in to play right away. I'll touch on a couple of more newcomers and maybe you're a little more familiar with then. Okay, we talked about Dante Moore. Now, he's probably not going to play right away, but people think he has a chance to be really special. Tell me about what you know about him and what do you think happens with him at UCLA?
Yeah. I think that Dante Moore kind of signifies kind of like the final resurrection of Chip Kelly. That's kind of how I think, honestly, because like he's got a really interesting coaching journey, and yeah, like he was so respected at Oregon, and then it was just excuse my language, but just kind of after that for a while, no matter what he was doing, it was just an absolute shit show. And he really had to rebuild his image, his brand, and in order to get recruits. And you've seen that, it's been a long rebuild. But you've seen the pieces start to come together. And I think in that offense, where obviously you're able to take advantage of space, of speed, you're going to see in what I hope for Dante Moore is, kind of the eclipsing of, what they've had at the quarterback position with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but kind of obviously who you would have hoped that he could have or would have become if all the cards played out right. So he's a guy, again, that I think that he has big-time NFL potential, has the arm, has the ability to run very well, and in an offense that I really do feel like could really fit his strengths with what he does well. It was a very surprising flip, kind of last minute. Flipping from Oregon. Maybe that had to do with Kenny Dillingham moving down to Arizona State, but UCLA is a program alongside USC that I'm very bullish on.
Got it. Okay, touch on maybe one or two more players, and then we're going to talk about the season itself, what you see as the most likely outcomes. So I would be remiss, I would be amiss, I'd be all the misses if I didn't mention that, as you said, Utah may not be a recruiting powerhouse, but I think that if you want to try to see, a Seattle Seahawks scout in his native element and catch him in his glory, go to Utah's campus or go to Utah's games this year and watch that particular Seahawks scout watching Miles Battle, who transferred, obviously, from the SEC to the Pac-12, already has 5 years, so in the tank, but has one more year of eligibility left because of the COVID-19 year. He's listed at 6'4". He's probably legitimately 6'2" and 7/8", or maybe 6'3" and a quarter, about 211 pounds. So he's a classic Seattle corner. Played well last year. He's probably going to be the star corner replacing Clark Phillips III. Tell me about what effect he has on an already really good Utah defense, and what do you think the future holds for him and maybe any other Utah players or transfers that you're going to be watching?
Yeah, I know a little bit about Miles Battle, just in that, like, he was, I believe, like one of the top transfer portal cornerbacks coming out here from the SEC from Ole Miss, right?
Yep.
Ole Miss. Okay, yeah. And again, with Utah, it's one of those things where they have the right culture, they have the right coaching put in place to where, he's not going to be asked to do more than what he should be asked, so to speak. Similar to what's been done in Seattle, those guys that they understand their responsibilities very well, and they don't divert from that. Utah, on both the offense and defensive side of the ball, that's what they do. They're extremely well coached, and it's why they're able to kind of squeeze all that performance and talent, out of all the guys that they bring in. But battle's a big time recruit for this program because, again, Utah is still underrated. They're back-to-back conference champions right now, and including myself, I can forget about them. When I'm talking about the top teams in this conference going into the year, usually who's on my mind? USC and Oregon, Washington, not even the next state over sometimes. But I think that what Coach Whittingham has done there, he's built this foundation, and now coming off of these back-to-back conference titles, you're going to see them take a new leap. And that is my hope with some of this recruiting. Another guy that they brought in that I think is going to serve them very well on the offensive side of the ball is Florida State transfer Micah Pittman.
Coming back home, well, sort of coming back home. At least it's roughly home to the same part of the country, at least.
Yeah. And he's a guy that I feel like adds a very different dynamic to their offense than what they've had in the past. Of course, they're not going to divert from their bread and butter, being very run oriented, incorporating their tight ends. They got Dallin Bentley, who's a tight end that CU was also recruiting as well. That's a big time blocker, but didn't have the biggest receiving production at the JUCO college level, but he has all the physical traits to do it. And he's somebody that I think you'll start hearing from a lot here soon or about in this offense. So Utah, they're just one of those teams I think that's probably always slept on because of their market and where they're located. But they're a very scary opponent for the Buffs to face at the end of their season. That's for sure.
Yes. And so that's a beautiful segue into the season itself.
Yes.
And as you pointed out, some people are still high on Utah, but people seem to have just moved off of Utah for whatever reason. And I'm hearing a lot of Oregon. I'm hearing a lot of USC. And even, like I said, the dark horse Washington for all the reasons you just talked about. But give me two teams that you think will be the most improved teams in the conference. And then two teams that you think will be heading in the wrong direction from last year to this year in the conference, going the hustling backwards.
Yes, man, I love this. So let me think about this. CU obviously is, I think, going to be one of the most improved programs.
Right.
And that's not to say just because they're working from the lowest floor out of anybody in the conference. I do think you'll see this team win 6 games. I think that can happen.
Right.
And
that's not that crazy. I concur. I concur.
Yeah, the talent level, the coaching, the culture, really it's just how quick is everything going to gel. But we do face 5 teams that finished with double-digit wins last year. However, on the flip side, we also face 5 teams that won 5 games or 4 games and less.
5 or fewer, yeah.
5 or fewer. So there's opportunity to take care of business and maybe surprise a team or two. On the flip side, again, I've been talking a lot about them. I do like Arizona State. I know that expectations are probably going to be mild in terms of what the winning record is going to be, but I think that they're going to be one of those teams that I know that Dillingham, he's young, he's only a few years older than me, coaching this team, but I do think that they could finish if they're able to get to something like 5 or 6 wins. I think that is incredible, for this team, and that shouldn't be overlooked. In terms of teams that might not be up to expectation, I I think UCLA is probably that. Again, they lost a lot of very important pieces to the NFL this year, and I don't think that this year should impact, hopefully, people's view of Chip Kelly, because I think he's bringing in a lot of very important transfers. They didn't have like the biggest or he's bringing in a lot of players. He didn't have the biggest or like highest rated transfer class or anything like that, but they did bring some really solid players on the defense as well. And yeah, so I don't think you'll see them kind of be right up there punching with USC. But I guess this might be a hot take in terms of expectation. I need to see it before I believe it with USC in terms of finally finishing and getting the job done. I have no issue or no qualms about their offense not performing to where it should be. But even though they brought in Bear Alexander, they brought in another really impressive edge rusher from Texas A&M that is escaping my name right now. I know they did focus on the defense a lot, but I just have to see it before I believe it with USC. So I would not be surprised if you see a team like Oregon, or not Oregon, Washington with Michael Penix, or we're not talking about Cam Rising, returning for his age 28 season or whatever it is, right? Those are going to be teams within the conference that I think maybe punch a little bit higher than what some would expect. I do think that USC, should be the betting favorite, I guess, so to speak, in terms of winning this conference, just based on the talent that they have. But I am skeptical of them putting it all together because we just haven't seen it at the level that we've wanted to from a Lincoln Riley-led program.
So if whoever it is, whether it be Oregon, whether it be USC or Utah again, is there a team, in your opinion, the Pac-12 that could be good enough that they could fight their way into the college football playoff? And if so, which of those teams do you believe could do that?
Sorry, Bill, can you say your question again? You cut out.
Yes. So of those teams, whether it be Utah again, whether it be Oregon, whether it be USC or even Washington, which I guess we can discuss Washington in a second, but is there a team in the conference that you think could possibly be good enough to find their way into the college football playoff? And if so, who is that team?
Yeah. I think we should have plenty this year that should be in that discussion. Oh goodness, my laptop's on 3%. Let me go get my charger and I'll answer your question.
Yes, please do that.
All right.
While you're doing that, I will let Brock take someone on and hurt someone's feelings again.
Well, I don't feel that angry anymore, so I think I'll just stick to just classic football talk. But to answer the question, and then David will come in with his answer after, I think there's 3 teams, in my opinion, that stand out as potential college football playoff prospects. Obviously, USC is number one. I'm not going to go into a deep dive into it because, well, we've been talking about USC forever. I think another one is Washington. They have a really good offensive setup with Kellen DeBoer, who has won at multiple levels. Washington last year, and then also at Fresno State, he was fantastic over there. Except when he had to coach against Hawaii, when Todd Graham, who is Hawaii's most hated man, beat him twice. But that's neither here nor there. Kellen DeBoer is a great coach. Michael Penix Jr. has taken a massive step up, going back to that 2020 form that we saw at Indiana, and they have one of the most, if not the most underrated wide receiver room in all of college football. Jalen McMillan, Roman Odunze, got the whole offense in general, and even with Hawaii's native son Wayne Talapapa at running back, they are absolutely stoked on offense. I think the defense is good enough to squeeze out some wins. And if you look at the schedule, they kind of have a pretty, straightforward shot at getting to the college football playoff. They open up their season at Boise and Tulsa at home. Tulsa should be an easy game. Boise could be a little bit of a trap game, but at the same time, Avalos, he's still trying to find his footing up in Idaho. They do go to Michigan State. I don't think that's going to be too difficult. It's not going to be that cold. They have a way better team. Mel Tucker's still trying to reestablish himself. So no need to worry about that. They play California at home, at Arizona, Oregon at home, a team they beat last year, Arizona State at home, Stanford on the road. I think they lose to USC in LA, but they'll probably play them again in the Pac-12 championship. They play Utah at home, at Oregon State, which I think will have a down year, and they finish off at Washington State. So that's another team that could have college football. You know, they could make it. And then last is Utah. You look at a coaching staff that's been there for at least 8 years. Whittingham's been there for almost 2 decades. The offense coordinator's been there for 9 years. Morgan Scaly, the guy that likes to say, text racist things to random people, he's been there for 8 years. And, we've seen it when they come against high-powered offenses. Their defenses, who might not have big names, they show up and they show out. So those are my 3 teams. I don't think Oregon is as good as we think they are, but I'll let David kind of take over and give us his takes.
Yeah. In my opinion, there's kind of like a top 4 tier within the conference of USC, Oregon, Washington, and Utah. I think that all of them theoretically should have a shot at getting in there and winning the conference. However, we know, being on the West Coast, that just because you win enough of games doesn't mean that you're going to get recognized or put in. And I would say that realistically, USC is probably the only school, along with Oregon. Those are the 2 schools that are realistically able to get into the college football playoff. If Washington or Utah were to win the conference again, I would say that they're deserving. But that's also, one of the issues with this conference right now is that there's not enough eyeballs on it, and it impacts our teams not getting to something like the college football playoff. I mean, you saw that last year with how USC and Utah and all that stuff kind of beat each other up, and you saw that. I guess TCU was undefeated. I forgot about that. Yeah, they were undefeated, right? Yeah, going into the year, dang it. But if TCU had lost, I do wonder if, you would have seen the Big 12 still kind of get that preferential treatment on getting a team in there instead of the Pac-12.
Yeah, no, TCU got lucky because USC lost. Obviously, they lost to Kansas State in the Big 12
that's
championship.
right.
And then also Alabama had 2 losses. I think Alabama only had 1. They probably would have jumped TCU as well. Kind of wrap up this show. I want to talk about kind of every team really quick. These are my actual takes when it comes to each team. I want to say it to you and get your opinion, whether I'm right or wrong and why. That's cool with you, David.
Let's go. Hot takes.
All right. Let's start off with Arizona Wildcats. Despite Jed Fisher's tremendous improvement to the program, his inability to properly handle the scandals that have come up in his program, especially when it comes to Jane DeLaura, who has settled a case in which, when he was in high school, I don't want to use the word confirmed, but essentially confirmed that he and a bunch of his high school teammates sexually assaulted a girl. That will be the downfall of him and his tenure at Arizona. What do you think?
Yes.
Excellent. Moving on to Arizona State. Drew Pine is a decent quarterback. Probably could have been to a better school to fit his situation a little bit more. But Jalen Rashada will get Arizona State into a bowl game this season. I think they win at least 6 games. What do you think about that, David?
False.
Love it.
Yes. Yeah.
No, please go on.
I think 6 wins is similar to CU. That's something where you're like definitely reaching. In my opinion, like you're exceeding or reaching expectation. But Arizona, I think they have a worse quarterback. Or Arizona State, they have a worse quarterback than what we have if you're comparing programs at CU with Shador. And a new coaching staff with a coach that's 32, 34 years old. I think you're going to see signs of improvement as the season goes on, but I don't know if that's going to mean a bowl game berth. If I had to put money on it, I would bet that, but not to say, like I said earlier, there's not a scenario where that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Moving on to California. Justin Wilcox seems like a dead man walking. I think one of the things that he really messed up on was not keeping young quarterback Kai Milner there. I'm a big fan of Kai Milner. I thought he had a lot of potential if you allowed him to develop, but Justin Wilcox will be fired before the 6th game of the season. What do you think?
Yeah. I would go with that. Not much to say.
Fair enough. Dan Lanning and Oregon are building something special, but that specialness isn't happening in 2023. They will finish with at least 9 wins, but they will miss both the Pac-12 title game and the college football playoff.
I'd agree with you. I think it's going to come down to USC and Utah again.
Love it. Moving on to the team in the same state, Oregon State. Despite their phenomenal 2022 season, it was clearly a easier schedule for them to compare to 2023. DJ Uiagalelei is not a needle mover for me. I think what we saw when he was a starting quarterback at Clemson is what he truly is. I do think that they take a step back this year. I do think they're bowl eligible, but they're between the 7 and 8 win range, and they will lose to Oregon. What do you think about that?
CU becomes bowl eligible once they beat Oregon State.
I'd agree with you. Love it. Stanford obviously finds itself at a new, road with head coach Troy Taylor, who comes from Portland State, I believe.
Yep.
Stanford will have buyer's remorse going with Taylor over San Jose State University head coach Brent Brennan.
Say that one again. I'm sorry, you broke up.
Oh, no problem. Stanford will have buyer's remorse going with Taylor over San Jose State University head coach Brent Brennan.
I like Taylor. I like that hire for Stanford. I think I'm in the minority on that. I think he'll do a good job.
Love it. Moving on to Chip Kelly and UCLA. Obviously, some hype with Dante Moore coming in. Chip Kelly's offense is not reinvented, but has the right piece around it to be as effective as it was at Oregon. However, despite the fact he has an offense that can put up 50, his defense will probably give up 60. UCLA will have less than 9 wins this season.
I'd agree, but I think you'll see them win double digits the next year.
Oh, love it. Moving on to their hated rivals, USC. This is the year Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch, and they all put it together. USC will go undefeated during the regular season, win the Pac-12 conference, and make it to the college football playoff. What do you think?
They're going to lose, well, I could give 2 predictions, but I'll say this: we're 0-16 against USC all time. We need to win at least once before they leave the conference.
Fair enough. Going to Utah. Despite what I said earlier about them being a dark horse for the college football playoff, they lost way too much talent over these past couple of years, while every team around them has gotten remarkably be better. Kyle Whittingham's window to win the Rose Bowl is shut. Though Utah will have a successful season, they will be bowl eligible. They will not be in the Pac-12 title picture, and they will not even come close to going back to the Rose Bowl. And I think David froze.
Or he's really thinking long and hard about this.
Yeah, I'm about to say, he's like, damn, that was a great question.
So while he's thinking about it, I will, and maybe he can hear me.
His frozen face is staring into my soul. I am scared at the moment in my humble abode.
While he's thinking intensely about that, I will mention my final question, and then hopefully he can come back and we can. Oh, yep, there we go.
There he is.
There we go. Okay. So, do you need Brock to repeat his question?
Yes.
Okay, Brock, repeat your question.
No problem. I believe that Kyle Whittingham's window to win the Rose Bowl is shut, though Utah will have a successful season where they will win at least 8 games. They will not be in the Pac-12 title picture. Oh, back into my soul.
So
I think you were still breaking up a little bit, but I think you said that they won't.
So Brock is saying he does not see Utah back in the Pac-12 title picture. Do you agree or disagree?
I disagree. I think you'll see them back in there. They still got that quarterback that got them there.
Love it. Washington, with their high-powered offense and very underrated defense, will have a very successful season. They will reach at least double-digit wins. They will be in a New Year's Six bowl game, and they will win it. What do you think about that? Back into my soul. All right.
Wow. Oh, no, he's back. Okay.
No,
Okay, here we go. So, did you hear the question?
No, I'm so sorry, guys.
Okay, no,
you're
it's
all
fine.
good.
Brock, reread your question, then I'll give my final question, and we'll get Dave out of here before the internet eats him.
Yes, well, I got two more. Washington State for
Or
Washington.
two more. Okay, go ahead.
All right, Washington will have a great season, double-digit wins, New Year's Six bowl appearance, and New Year's Six bowl win in 2023.
I like that. I'll go with that. I like that. Yeah.
I like that
Well
too.
done, Brock.
All right, now to end on a negative note, Washington State, despite having one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country in Cam Ward and a very underrated wide receiver transfer in Kyle Williams from UNLV, they will sputter to the end, and this will be Jake Dickett's last season in charge of the Cougars up in Pullman.
I missed that one.
So Brock was saying,
Bill, you asked the question. I think you're getting through better.
Yeah.
yes. So Brock was saying that despite both Kyle Williams, who he really likes, who transferred there from UNLV, and the enormously underrated but super talented Cameron Ward, that this will be the last year of the Jay Dickens administration up there on the Palouse in Washington State. They will have an unsuccessful season, and their coach will be shown the door.
Yeah. People don't realize they had a losing record in the conference last year, even though they finished 7-5.
Yeah, I mean, they only won by 7 against Idaho, so that should be kind of the first, big picture. And honestly, I'm not sure they beat Colorado State in their season opener. Colorado State is vastly improved, and they have to play in Fort Collins. Not an easy task for anybody. So just keep an eye out for Jake Dickert to get the boot early into his second full season in charge, third season total.
And I will ask my you better just sneak in your final question before the internet ate him.
He is sputtering to the end just like an Iowa Hawkeyes offense.
If you can still hear me, because maybe we can still get your answer in terms of audio, even if you can't be seen. My final question. Thanks, Brock, for eating up all the good internet. I was going to ask him how many wins in his mind constituted a successful season. And that was going to be it, actually. That's my final question. So I don't know if you can still hear me. Oh, and then other than your big game with Colorado State, what's the other game you're most excited about to see Colorado play? Those are my final two questions. If you can hear us, David. Maybe.
All right.
No.
Well, speak on behalf of David. I think.
Wait, hold on. I can kind of sort of hear David.
Oh.
Can you?
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me, David?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you will imagine that David is once again deep in thought. So my final two questions were: what number of wins to you constitutes a successful season for Colorado? And other than obviously the Colorado State game, what's the other Colorado game you're most excited to see?
Yes, great question. A successful year for CU is just beating the bettors, man. The odds makers. We're above that 3.5. I'm going to be ecstatic because I also hit a parlay on a Nuggets championship and Buffs going over the win total. So we'll do that, and then but realistically, I want to get to a bowl game and win. That's what I really want. 6 wins and above and a bowl win. And then the game that I'm looking most forward to outside of Nebraska, it has to be against USC. This is a team that does not consider CU a rival because they have absolutely obliterated us. But it is time that we send them off to the greener pastures of the Big Ten with a Colorado Buffalo ass whooping.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's very brave of you.
I would like to add, it's not really greener pastures in the Big Ten. The only thing that grows in the Big Ten is scandals. All right. That's the only
okay,
thing.
and on that very broad
No,
note,
wait. I got one appropriate question for David. One more. I promise it's the last one, Bill, and then you can go to sleep. Will the Florida State Seminoles have buyer's remorse going with Mike Norvell over Colorado Buffalo's head coach, Deion Sanders?
ooh.
Okay, say that one again about Coach Norvell or Deion.
So
Bill-
he was saying, will the Florida State Seminoles have buyer's remorse over going with Mike Norvell as their head coach over Deion Sanders?
Yeah, you were breaking up, Bill. I'm sorry. I must be cursed.
No, it's okay. Brock, repeat your question.
Will the Florida State Seminoles have buyer's remorse going with Mike Norvell over Deion Sanders?
I think any school that doesn't have either, Nick Saban or Dabo Swinney or Lincoln Riley will regret not being in on Coach Prime.
Beautiful.
And on that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just saying, I think you'll see Coach Prime win a national championship before Mike Norvell ever does.
Got it.
Ooh,
well, on that note, we will definitely, once again, bring you back. And also, we will send you some more robust gerbils for your Wi-Fi that will be able to last a little longer. So tell everyone, David, where they can find your work, where they can follow you, your the address and name of your YouTube channel, everything. So where can they find your work and follow you, David?
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
You can follow me.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah, you can follow me at David Talks Buffs on Twitter. I'm on there quite a bit, and then on YouTube, my channel David Talks Buffs. And yeah, that's where you can find my work, my interviews, everything like that. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and I'll be sure to share this out to the Twitterverse.
Thank you. Well, completely our pleasure. Once again, on behalf of Team NBS Sports, my co-host, the baby-faced assassin, Brock Vieira, who's right there. And, yeah, right there. My wonderful guest who will be back later in the season. In fact, we'll pick a game, a big game. We'll bring it back to preview the Colorado schedule. That David Neal, a.k.a. David Talks Bucks, who has wonderful Buffs content. Don't say that too fast. Wonderful Buffs content all throughout the season. Thank you once again. And for Team NBS Sports, we are OUT.